You are 31 years old, and you are translating a procurement report from Farsi into English when the call comes in. Not a dramatic call, not a call that sounds like the beginning of anything. It is your section chief, and he tells you to come upstairs. And you close your laptop and take the elevator and walk into a room where 3 people are sitting around a table, and none of them work for your agency. You know this because you know everyone who works for your agency. That is your job, knowing things. You sit down. The man across from you slides a photograph across the table. It is a photograph of a bridge in Budapest. Standing on that bridge is a man you recognize immediately because you spent 4 months building a file on him 2 years ago. His name, at least the name your agency uses for him, is Cardinal. He is a mid-level Russian intelligence officer who has been operating under diplomatic cover in Vienna. In the photograph, he is handing an envelope to a woman. The woman is your section chief's predecessor, the man who hired you. The man who told you that this work matters, that the quiet ones are the ones who hold the world together. You look at the photograph for a long time, then you look up. The man across from you says nothing. He simply waits. This, you will later understand, is the first test. They are not watching what you say. They are watching how long it takes you to understand what the photograph means, and what you decide to do with that understanding once it arrives. It takes you 11 seconds. You know because you count them. You say, "What do you need from me?" 3 weeks later, you no longer exist, not in any way that a database can confirm. Your personnel file at the agency has been archived under a classification level that requires signatures from 2 different cabinet-level officials to access. Your apartment lease has been quietly terminated. Your car has been sold. Your name, your real name, appears in exactly one place in the entire architecture of the government that employed you for 6 years. And that place is a document that itself is stored inside a system that has no official name. You are not dead, you are something more useful than dead. You are unverifiable. This is where your life actually begins. The organization that recruits you has no acronym. It has no building with a sign outside. It does not appear in any congressional budget. Not because the money doesn't exist, but because the money moves through 14 different channels across 9 different countries before it reaches anything you would recognize as an operating fund. You will later learn that the people who control those channels don't know what the money is ultimately for. They believe they are managing routine financial instruments. This is by design. Compartmentalization is not just a policy here. It is the entire architecture of survival. Your handler, the first one, is a woman who tells you to call her Marin. You understand immediately that this is not her name. She sits across from you in a hotel room in Lisbon and explains the structure of what you have joined, or rather she explains the parts of the structure she is authorized to show you, which is a small fraction of the whole. She tells you that you are now what certain people inside certain agencies refer to in conversation as a ghost, not as a compliment, as a problem. You are the thing that appears in the middle of an operation that was supposed to be contained. The thing that takes a piece of intelligence that 3 agencies have been building toward for 2 years and moves it somewhere none of them expected. You are the variable that classified models cannot account for because you are not in the models. She tells you that your first assignment is in Tbilisi. She tells you what outcome is required. She does not tell you how to achieve it. This, she explains, is because method is your jurisdiction. Outcome is hers. You ask her what happens if the outcome is not achieved. She looks at you with something that is almost patience and says that in that case, there will be no record that the outcome was ever attempted, and no record that you were ever the person attempting it. You sit with that for a moment, then you ask her for the file. Tbilisi takes you 19 days. The outcome is achieved. You do not discuss the method. You never discuss the method, not then and not in any of the years that follow. Method is the one thing you keep entirely to yourself, not because you are told to, but because you understand very quickly that method is the only leverage you have. The moment you explain how you do what you do, you become replaceable. Right now you are not replaceable. Right now you are the only person in an organization of careful, intelligent, dangerous people who can walk into a situation where every official channel has failed and find the single point of pressure that moves the whole structure. You protect that ability the way other people protect their families. In the first 2 years, you operate in 11 countries. You do not stay anywhere longer than 3 weeks. You do not use the same identity twice. You have, at any given time, 4 functional identities with complete documentation, employment histories, and digital footprints that will survive moderate scrutiny. You have 2 identities that will survive deep scrutiny. You have 1 identity that has never been used for anything except absolute emergency, and you have rehearsed the biography of that identity so thoroughly that you dream in it sometimes. The work itself is not what people imagine when they imagine this kind of work. There are no car chases. There are no shootouts in crowded markets. Those things happen in the world you operate in, but they represent failure, someone's failure, usually the failure of someone who is now no longer a problem for anyone. What you do is quieter and more dangerous than any of that. You sit in rooms, you read people. You find the thing that a person wants more than they want to be loyal, and you offer it to them, or you make them believe it is being offered, and then you watch what they do. You are not manipulating people in the crude sense. You are identifying the logical conclusion of what they already want and making yourself the path to it. The distinction matters to you. You think about it often. You think about it most on the night in Sarajevo, when a man you have been developing for 4 months, as a source, tells you something that changes your understanding of the assignment you are on. He tells you this not because you have pressured him, but because he trusts you, or rather because he trusts the identity you are wearing. The version of you that has had dinner with him 7 times and listened to him talk about his daughter who wants to study architecture in Milan. He trusts that person completely. And the thing he tells you will, if you pass it up the chain as you're supposed to, result in an operation that will end his ability to do anything at all, including send his daughter to study architecture in Milan. You pass it up the chain. You do this because you understand that the individual cost of what you do is not something you are authorized to weigh against the structural outcomes you are working toward. This is something Marin explained to you in the first month, and something you have tested against your own conscience many times since. It always comes back to the same place. You are not in this to protect individuals. You are in this to prevent outcomes so catastrophic that the individuals lost along the way would be impossible to count. This is either a genuine moral framework, or it is the story you tell yourself to continue functioning. Possibly it is both. You have stopped trying to separate them. By the end of your 3rd year, you have moved beyond individual assignments. You are now what Marin, who is still your handler, and whose real name you have by this point discovered but never used, calls a coordinator. This means that you are not just operating in the field. You are managing other assets, people who do not know who you are, who receive instructions through channels so thoroughly insulated from your actual identity that if any one of them were captured and told everything they knew, the most they could confirm is that someone, somewhere, was directing them. You are responsible for their outcomes without being connected to their existence. This is a different kind of weight than the field work. In the field, the consequences of your decisions land on you and on the people directly in front of you. In coordination, the consequences of your decisions land on people you have never met, will never meet, people who are risking their lives on instructions that trace back through many layers of insulation to a judgment call you made in a hotel room at 2 in the morning based on incomplete information. You make a wrong call in your 4th year. You do not make it carelessly. You make it based on the best analysis of the available information, and you make it after consulting through the appropriate channels with the 2 people above you in the structure whose assessments you trust most. You all arrive at the same conclusion. The conclusion is wrong. The operation in question fails in a way that exposes an asset in Tehran who has been in place for 7 years. The asset is not killed. The asset is imprisoned, and imprisonment in this context means something that you force yourself to understand completely rather than abstracting it into acceptable loss. You spend 3 days doing nothing except reading everything available about what imprisonment in that facility involves. This is not self-punishment. This is accountability that the official structure cannot provide. No report will be written that accurately describes what happened. No review board will convene. The error will be absorbed into the silence that surrounds everything you do, so you hold it yourself, you carry it forward. You let it make you more careful without letting it make you afraid, because fear in this work is more dangerous than error. In your 5th year, something shifts in the structure above you. You become aware of it gradually, the way you become aware of most things, through accumulation of small signals rather than any single event. A coordination instruction arrives through a channel that should have been retired 8 months ago. A financial transfer that you are tangentially aware of moves through a route that is inefficient in a way that suggests the normal route is compromised. A message from Marin contains a phrase that means, in the language the two of you have developed over years, that she is being watched. You sit with all of this for a week. Then you begin, very quietly, to move things. You move the assets you are responsible for into configurations that do not depend on the compromised infrastructure. You do this without alerting anyone above you to what you are doing. Because you do not yet know where the compromise originates, and therefore you do not know who above you is affected by it or complicit in it. You are operating on the assumption that the problem could be anywhere, which means you are, for the first time in 5 years, operating without a structure above you that you trust. This is the loneliest professional experience of your life, which is a strange thing to realize about a life that has been, by any external measure, extraordinarily solitary.